We have a new version for Flutter and Dart. So it is Flutter 3.32 and Dart 3.8. And it just announced in the Google I/O a couple of days ago. And in this video, we are going to take a look at the changes and we are gonna see what happened. So stay with me. Hi there, this is Imaneo. Welcome to my channel. So as you know, in this channel we talk about software engineering, game development, Flutter, Dart, and different things. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you can subscribe. And in this video we are going to take a look at the Flutter and Dart changes. So it is Flutter 3.32 and Dart 3.8. And yeah, so let's jump into the article that we have here. So as you see, it was announced in the Google I/O 2025. And by the way, I suggest you to watch the video that you see here. It is from the Flutter and Google itself. And by the way, I'm going to take a look at the changes and add my point of view to the changes. So you can watch both, and I will put the link of the article and also the video into the description. In the first sentences, you can read some news. For example, it says that based on the JetBrains survey, Flutter has been the most used multi-platform app framework since 2021. So it's a very good news because you can see that Flutter is using by a lot of developers and it is the most used app framework in the IntelliJ. And also here we have the data based on the apps that are published in the App Store and Google Play. So it was around 10% in 2021 and now it is around 30%. So around 1/3 of applications are developed with Flutter. And also it shows that Flutter is being used by a lot of developers. And yeah, so here you can take a look at the recent apps that are, big apps that are developed using Flutter. It is Notebook LM that is developed by the Google itself. And we have Google Cloud here. And here we have Universal, Reflection.app, TeamLab, and the other ones. So you can take a look at them to see how Flutter works in your device. So it's a good showcase. Maybe you can install them and take a look. And here we have the Dart timeline. So as you see here, we have the features that are added to the Dart language. Started with Sun null safety. By the way, the difference between the Sun null safety and null safety is that in null safety, in the low level code, for example, Kotlin, when you compile it into the Java code and JVM, in the low level, it has the if-else check around the variables that are defined not nullable. For example, in Kotlin, you have a value that is not nullable, but in the low level code, because Java doesn't support null safety, it has the if-else check around the variable in the machine code, in the low level code. And on the other hand, the sound null safety is the fact that even in the machine code, there is no if-else check around the not nullable variables, and it is shorter and more performant to run because there's no if-else check. By the way, I will put a link into the details of the difference between Sun null safe and null safe. You can read more about it, but basically the point is that Sun null safety is more performant and the result code, the machine code, is shorter and more optimized for the end user. And Dart is the Sun null safe language. And we had other changes, and I think these three are the things that are added in this release. So we are going to take a look together. The first one is null-ever elements. So it is basically like this part that I highlighted. Before that, you had to have an if statement in your list to have the nullable value. For example, you want to add this value if it is not null, or the other value, or this value. And they just simplified it with a question mark in the beginning of the nullable value. So if it is not null, it will be added to the list. Otherwise, it's not going to add the null value in the list. And yeah, so it's a simple change to have a shorter code. By the way, I think this one is more readable in my opinion, but I think that they did this change based on the demand that the developers have. And here is another change, dot shorthands. So it is for the enums that you have. For example, you have cross axis alignment and main axis size. And for example, in these cases, you can just ignore the name part, and you can just write a dot here followed by the enum type that you want to have. Again, I think this one is more readable, but they just simplified it and it's a shorter form of the same. And here we have the developer experience. For example, here we have the property editor. It is a very cool feature. So for example, here you have the app bar, and here inside that you have the text, and in this side, in the left side of the VS Code or any other IDE that you use, you can modify the properties of the text. For example, you can enter a text here, or you can take a look at the other properties. For example, you can see that, okay, there's an overflow property here. So you can click on the drop down to see what you have, and you can see that we have max lines. So this is very helpful for investigating the properties that you have in the different widgets. And we have some improvements on the pub.dev. For example, here we have the trending packages. So if you open the pub.dev, you will see the trending packages. So these are the most used packages recently, or something like that. Yeah, in the last month. And also we have some improvements on the formatting. For this one, I'm going to open the article that they published for the Dart itself. So here we have more information. For example, yeah, this is the formatting updates. For example, before that, when you had this line of code, and when you try to format the code, it didn't change it like this. But now it just adds the comma after here, and then it formats the code like this. I mean, in the past, you had to insert the comma here manually, and then you needed to try to run the formatting. But now it does this automatically. And because there are a lot of conversation to see which one is better, they just enabled it using a configuration. So you can disable it if you don't like the change, and you can enable it if you like it. So I think it is enabled by default, but you can change it. And also this is another change. So with the new formatter, it looks better here and also here. And yeah, so this is the change that is about the formatting. And the next one is Dart cross compilation. So the point is that in the past, when you wanted to build your Dart application for Linux, you had to run it in Linux. So now you can just build the Linux application using your macOS or Windows. It doesn't matter where you try to compile it, but it can compile it into the Linux from wherever you are. And also here we have integration with platforms. But before that, let me take a look at the Dart article to see if we have anything else here. Yeah, we talked about the null-aware elements here. And yeah, so the next one is doc imports. So as you remember, in the past, when you wanted to have something like this in your Dart comments, you needed to import it. So for example, you have future class or future.value, and I mean, you could have this without import, but if you wanted to be able to alt click or command click to open the reference, you had to import it to the file, and this way you could open it. And the point is that it actually imports the code into the file, so it is not efficient. And with the new change, you can just import it like this. So it is inside a Dart command with 3 slashes, and followed by an @ doc import and your import path. So this way it just imports it for the documentation usage. It is not going to actually import it in the real world. And yeah, the other one is the training packages. And yeah, so here we have the hot reload on the web. It is experimental. So if you have worked with the web, you know that when you have a change and you press on the hot reload, the whole application is going to restart it on the web because it was not supported. I mean, the hot reload was not supported, and it just resets the state and everything is fresh when you do a hot reload. So now you can just enable it using a flag and it actually works. So we are going to take a look at it in the main article. And the other one is direct native interoperability. So we are going to take a look at it in the main article. And yeah, so that's it with the Dart article. And yeah, as you see here, we have the direct native interoperability. So it's a very important change on Dart and also the Flutter. And yeah, so the point is that at the moment when you want to communicate with the native APIs, for example, when you are on Android and you want to, I don't know, read the battery level or retrieve the contacts list of the phone, you need to use method channels. And the fact is that you have the Flutter UI thread and you have the native UI thread, and these two threads communicate using the message passing using the method channel. And even for a function that is, for example, reading the battery level or the volume, I don't know if they are sync or not, but suppose that they are a sync method. So I mean, it is not a future or something like that. Even for these cases, you need to have a future inside the Dart because it has a message passing and it goes to the thread of the native part, and when it gets back, you need to realize that what was the value. And in fact, it was a simple sync call, but because we have different threads and there are a lot of complexities, the value returns in an async way. So the change is that they want to merge the threads. They're going to use the native UI thread for the Dart or Flutter UI thread. So this way they can communicate on the same thread. And for a sync method call, you can just have a sync method call on also the Dart side. And also it is for the native assets or libraries that you have, third-party libraries. And the same happens. So suppose that they are imported in the native side, and from your Dart side, you need to communicate using message passing, and it is always async. And the most important is that when you communicate using message passing and the method channel from Dart to the native, you lose the static type feature of the Dart language. So for example, in the Android native side, you will get an entity or an object for the contacts, for the contact list, and you need to implement the same data structure in the Dart side to map the data that you receive in the native side to what you have in the Dart side. So this way you will have the same structure but duplicated in both sides. And you know that it is not safe, for example, when there is a change inside the native part, you also need to do it inside the Dart side. So it adds a lot of problems to keeping them synced together. And using the direct native interoperability, we are going to have some code generations that generates the native code equivalent in the Dart. So this way we have a type-safe communication from the Dart to the native. And the last one is the work that they want to improve the FFIGen and JNIGen wrappers. And yeah, so I think they are going to announce something in the second half of the year. And yeah, so it is just in preview, so you can try to use it. I'm gonna show you the link if I see this inside the article. And yeah, so let's jump into the updates on Android. So here you see that from Flutter 3.29, we have the implayer as the default renderer in Android. And for the very old devices, for example, 10 years old devices, we have Skia for the Android because they have hardware limitations and these kind of things. And by the way, if you want to know more about the implayer and the Skia and how they connected to the low-level APIs, I just explained it in the video that I recorded for the Flutter 3.29 changelogs. I'm gonna put the link inside the description. You can see the graph that I explained everything that goes to the GPU. And here we have the edge-to-edge design default on Android. So it is something that is old, but they just have it because it is Google I/O and it is every year. And here we have the scribe feature in the Android. So it was available in iOS, but they also added it in Android. And it is like that. For example, you have the text field and you can just write something and it detects what you have written and it just inserts it into the text field. And now you can have it in your Android. And there were some material updates. And on the iOS, we have some new widgets and improvements on the Cupertino. So as you know, we have Cupertino widgets for iOS and material widgets for Android or other places or operation systems. And they just improved some widgets inside the Cupertino. And we have the Swift package manager. So it is also a big improvement. In the past, we were using CocoaPods for iOS. So if you have worked with it, you can know that it is really challenging. And using the Swift package manager, that is a new replacement for the CocoaPods, everything is much simpler and easier for the developers. And yeah, so the transition is ongoing and over 150 plugins have added to the Swift package manager and supported. And I think most of them are Firebase plugins, yes, as you see here. And yeah, so the other change is a little bit funny for me. For this, I'm going to open the article that is specifically for Flutter, and it is explained here, squircles. So the point is that we have the roundness for the components that we have, and you can define the radius for the different edges. And iOS or Apple implemented a new type of radius. I mean, it is called squircles, and it is a little bit different from what we have in rounded corners. So as you can see here, I mean, you see that here we have the direct line to here when it is like this, and when the super ellipse is enabled, the curveness is like this, so it goes towards the middle, so we don't have the direct line to here. Take a look at it again. Yeah, you see that the roundness is a little bit changed, so it is not like the hard edges with just radius. The whole shape is curved, and they just implemented it using their mathematical implementation. I mean, I think it is not exactly the same as what Apple does, but it is similar. So they just wanted to improve the experience for the Apple users that they work with the Flutter apps. And yeah, so as we are in this article, I'm going to show you what we have from the top. Yeah, for the web, this is the flag that I was talking about. So if you want to implement the experimental hot reload, you can just add this flag to the Flutter run command, or you can do this like this in your launch.json in your VS Code. And it is also available in the Dart pad, so you can already use the hot reload in the Dart pad. And yeah, so let's continue to the first article. Here we have the WebAssembly that is not new. We already had it in the past releases, and there are some changes in the accessibility that is explained inside the Flutter article. I think after that I'm going to go through the Flutter article because it is more detailed. And again, it is the hot reload for web that we already talked about. And yeah, so here we have the changes in the ecosystem. So we have Canonical that is contributing to the Flutter a lot. So they are working on the multi-window support. So as you see here, we have multi-window. So for example, when you are in the desktop, if it is a Flutter window, you cannot have the second window at the moment, but for example like this. But with this release or in the future releases, we are going to be able to have Flutter multi-window. So suppose that it is a single application just like the Chrome that we have, and you can have different windows that work with the same instance of the application. But I think it is for the future. They are just working on it. And we have LG that is using Flutter in their web OS. And yeah, so here we have a lot of AI buzzword things. So we have AI logic. I don't know what it is, but I think your brain is already filled with a lot of AI words, so I'm not going to talk a lot. And here we have the Gemini in Dartpad, so you can just write something and it writes the Dart code for you. And it is also available inside the IntelliJ and VS Code, so not a big news, but it is available in VS Code and IntelliJ. And yeah, this is an important thing in my opinion, to have a protocol for the LLMs, for the AI agents. So there's a context protocol, model context protocol for the code generation or development related things, and the Flutter is going to follow the rules that are designed or standards that are designed by the MCP. And this way we are able to have better code generation for Flutter. Yeah, so I'm happy that Flutter is joining the standard protocol that we have in the world. And yeah, so this is for the document that we have for overall Google I/O and the latest news of the Flutter. And here, this is the article that we have for specifically for Flutter. Here we have some framework changes. On top we don't have anything special. Here we have the framework changes. So the point is that we already had the expansion tile widget, so you could have expandable tile that is a material styled widget, but they just added a new expansible widget which is not dependent to any theme. So it is a raw widget, so you can implement your own style using that. So we also had the same for here. We had menu anchor, and now we have raw menu anchor. So these raw classes, I mean the classes that we have here, for example, menu anchor, this one extends the raw menu anchor. And this way we are able to implement different types of the menu anchor with different styles. For example, if there's a specific design for iOS, we can just extend it and implement the Cupertino style of this widget, and also the same here. Or you can extend this widget to implement your own custom design. And here we talked about the squircles. And yeah, so they are changing the components that we already have with this new type of roundness. So it just happens under the hood if you run on iOS. And here we have some improvement on the sheet that we had for Cupertino sheet. So yeah, there was a bug that they have fixed. It is not a big important change. We have also the navigation bars that are improved. So they are widget improvements. And again, here we had the improvement on the carousel controller that has a more convenient animate to index method call. So by the way, I really like this widget that introduced in the material. I think it is very nice. And yeah, here we have some callbacks for on-hover and on-focus change callbacks for the tab bar. And also we have some improvements on the search bar. I mean, these are the changes that you can also take a look. They are just minor improvements in my opinion. And here we have an optimization for the semantics tree compiling. So the compilation time is 80% faster. And also there's an improvement for the frame time in the web. By the way, as you know, we have accessibility in Flutter. So we have a semantic tree, just like the widget tree that we have. It is there alongside the widget tree. And for example, if someone with accessibility tries to use the app, they can just use the tools that are provided for them to work with the app. So if we don't have the semantic tree, they are not able to work with the app. For example, there are some tools, for example, TalkBack in Android, I think that for example, if a person is blind, they can work with the app using their finger. So it just reads the things that are visible on the page, and it tells them if it is a button and if it is clickable, and they can click, they can scroll. And yeah, this is the optimization for the semantic tree. And here we have the new defined semantic role API that is integrated into the semantics. So it is an enum that you can define the different parts of the application using enum to let the tools know what is it. So for example, if it is a tab, if it is a tab bar, if it is a, I don't know, cell, row, and search box, or if it is a menu. And yeah, so by the way, I think most of them are already integrated into the Flutter default widgets. For example, I suppose that a tab bar has the semantic role of tab bar for sure. And also it is important for you if you are developing a widget or something like that, so you can wrap it using the semantics, and then you can add the semantic role. So it helps the tools that are helping the people with different disabilities. So you can use it in your app. And we have other accessibility improvements here. So yeah, I think the most important one was the semantic role, but here I think there are some minor changes. For example, user experience for widgets and screen readers. Yeah, screen readers are the tools that I was referring. For example, they can just help you to realize what components are visible inside the screen that you can't see. So they can just realize. And yeah, so here we have some improvements in the text input. So I'm not going to talk about them. Yeah, there are some bug fixes and improvements. And yeah, here we have the progress on the multi-window support that we already talked about a bit. So it is contributing by Canonical, the company that is behind the Ubuntu. And yeah, these are the things that they have worked on. For example, accessibility, app lifecycle, focus, keyboard events, to be able to have a different window for Flutter. And here we have the desktop thread merging. So it is related to the Dart interoperability that I already talked about. So Canonical also updated the Windows and macOS to allow them to be able to merge the UI thread and the platform threads that they have. So this change helps us to merge the threads for Dart FFI and interoperate with the native APIs. And yeah, so these are the details. If you are interested, you can take a look. And here we have an iOS change. So here you see that it says users will not longer see a confirmation dialog when they paste content from other apps. So it's a change that we have on iOS. And on Android, we have the change on the Gradle. So I already talked about it in the previous version. So they're going to use the Kotlin KTS instead of the Gradle. And yeah, it is the scribe feature that I already talked about. So you can write something with your hand or with your pen inside the text field, and it just adds the text that you have written in your screen into the text field. And yeah, this is also we talked about. It is about the in-player on Android. And we have other in-player updates. So here, as you see, in the past we had this bug. So when you scale a text, it is like this, it is lagging, and now it is very smooth. So we don't have this issue anymore. And these are also other improvements. And here we have the DevTools and IDs. And this is the property editor that we already talked about. And we have some DevTools improvements. For example, new offline support for network screen, bug fixes for issues related to review history and other stuff. Not a big change, there's just some improvements. And we have some improvements on the analyzer. For example, the doc imports that we already talked about. And here is the Gemini in Android Studio. And now it is able to speak fluently Flutter and Dart. So I think it is based on the standard that I already talked about. What was that? MCP? Yeah, it was the standard that the AI models, LLM models can talk with the source code or development tools. And yeah, it is MCP. It is explained here. And again, we have some buzzword with AI. I'm going to go through them. Yeah, there are some AI tools that are added in the Firebase dashboard, and here we have the breaking changes. There's a deprecated API for API 36, and also here we have some discontinued packages. So there are 6 packages that they were developing by Flutter team, but they are discontinued. So yeah, for example, Flutter Markdown. And I hope they added the alternative packages. Yeah, I think this one is the alternative, for example, for Markdown. And yeah, if you are using these packages, you can just migrate to the alternatives. And here we have some new requirements for the macOS and iOS minimum version. And here we have some breaking changes. For example, expansible tile controller has deprecated and you can use expansible controller. I think it is because of the fact that they want to introduce the raw implementation of the widgets. So as you see here, tile is removed from the name, and this thing is renamed. So it is now a stylus handwriting instead of a scribble. And here we have the material theme naming change. So indicator color is deprecated and it is inside the tab bar theme data instead of theme data. So you need to move it here. And also we have the name change for these 3 classes. It is card theme that is changed to card theme data. And we have dialog theme, which is changed to dialog theme data, and also tab bar theme data. And the last one is the formula for Spring description that has updated. So as you know, you can implement the animation just like the Spring that we have in physics and real world. So I have 2 samples to show you here. Yeah, so suppose that you have something in your app and you want to implement the Spring animation when user releases it. So you see that it is like a real world physics animation or simulation. And also we have something here. For example, you can change the stiffness of the Spring animation. I mean, it is from Android, but we have the same in Flutter and the formula has updated. Yeah, for example, with the low stiffness, you see that it goes and it gets back here, but with the high stiffness, there is no bouncing, so it just goes directly to this point. And also we have other properties, for example, the bounce amount, and yeah, so this is an improvement for the Spring animation that we have in Flutter. And yeah, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like the video, please hit the like and subscribe the channel. It really helps me, and see you next time. Bye.